What's up, everyone? Thralls of Metal back again. This time we are very excited to bring you the very anticipated and long-awaited Carcass discography ranking. Yay!
Yay!
I am, of course, Shredlord.
Miller.
Necrotic Nick.
Jammin John.
And once again, we are going over Carcass's entire discography for your pleasure and for ours. Now, Carcass is not a band that had a ton of mainstream success, but if you are any kind of heavy metal fan worth your weight in salt, you should have at least heard of who they are. They have covered different genres, from grindcore to death metal to melodic death metal, but they do it all with a signature style, and they do it all with some goddamn finesse, baby. As I said in their earlier days, they were actually a grindcore band. Some people consider them one of the, well, they are considered the pioneers of grindcore, also referred to as splatter death metal and hardcore, you know. Hardcore.
I don't know if I've heard hardcore before.
I don't either. I don't know what.
That's
I don't know if
that's
that
what
should
it
be
said.
I don't know if that should be a
Even
thing.
Splattercore, that one caught me off guard.
I like splatter
Splattercore,
death metal,
actually.
splattercore.
Hardcore kind of sounds, I don't know. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't think that's appropriate. Inappropriate.
Yes, bad. Naughty. But we digress. In 1986 is when this band was formed in the UK. There's some good old British boys. Bill Steer, who is a phenomenal blonde bomber guitar player, wielding a Les Paul of fire. Back in the day, started a school band with his buddy Ken Owen, who is a damn good drummer, and we will talk about Ken, obviously, as he is in Carcass for many years. That band was very short-lived, and Steer joined Disattack with one-name members, from what I was able to gather: drummer Mitty, bassist Paul, and drummer Peck. Yes.
Walter Peck.
Walter Peck, perhaps. I do not know.
Mitty Paul
That
Peck?
man's a dick.
Mitty Paul Peck.
Mitty Paul Peck.
Maybe it
Mitty
was
Paul
Peter
Peck.
Piper's.
That sounds like
Peck
something on
that he
Mork and
picked.
Mindy. How many pecks did Peck pick?
Mitty of them.
Only the answer is only four. Because they actually released a 4-song EP called A Bomb Drops, which I guess it did. And then Paul leaves, and a excellent, well, at the time he was a vocalist and guitarist for the Electric Hippies, but Jeff Walker comes into play and would come in and step in as the bassist, and then eventually down the line he'd take over as the main vocalist. To continue our trek through the early days, vocalist Peck decides to take a trip to India and is so moved from the experience he then changes his name to Sanjeev. So,
Sanjeev Peck?
Sanjeev No Peck.
No Peck.
Sanjeev No Peck, I do believe, yes.
Melissa Peck.
Now, while they were getting things going, Bill Steer decides that he's able to pull double duty because nothing serious has gone on yet. He ends up joining Napalm Death to help record the second half of Scum, which Jeff Walker also designed the album cover for. Shortly after that, the band Disattack decides to change its name to Carcass, and that would stick for the rest of their career. A direction change would lead to Ken Owen on drums now, and after the 87 demo flesh-ripping Sonic Torment, Sanjeev left to... I don't know where Sanjeev left, but he left.
He went to go find his peck.
He went to go find his peck, most likely.
He went to go peck himself.
We hope you found it, sir.
Yes.
But that would leave the other three to basically manage vocal duties amongst the three of them collectively. Duties.
And somehow duties would be the least gross thing about this.
Sure.
It wouldn't be.
Now that the band is finally settled in after quite the rough start, almost very, not as bad as Napalm Death,
Right.
but I mean, it took a lot of different moving pieces to finally get Carcass going, and it did. Then, in a matter of only 4 days, these boys lay it down to put out their very first album, Reek of Putrefaction. 1988, Earache Records. This is basically a 22-track grindcore album.
Burning through.
Yes.
Burning through.
Yeah, a lot of 1-minute songs, a lot of 2-minute songs. If you watch the Napalm Death discography, you will know that I am not a fan of grindcore at all. So, with all due respect, this album was my number 7. This was my dead last just because of The grindcore. There's nothing saving about it to me. However, it obviously was good enough because BBC radio DJ John Peel, who had the Peel Sessions, which was kind of like a famous music thing going on there, he loved this album. And because he loved this album, he was able to get them on a Peel session, and that helped bring them some notoriety. Also, unbeknownst to me while doing some research, they took that Peel session and released it with some funny monikers. They released it as Carcass, I believe, but their names in there were, let's see, K. Groom Gargler, J. Awful Mangler, and W.G. Thorax Embalmer. So
Thorax
Embalmer.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name my first kid.
I thought that was really cool. But yeah, overall, I'm not crazy about this. I'd say this is number 7 for me, and solely because 2 things. They rushed this album, so the production is very bad, and I just don't like grindcore. So I'll let my cohorts explain their opinions.
I also had it at number 7. There was a few standouts, Maggot Colony and Piscified. But and going back to the grindcore, I'm not an overly huge fan of grindcore. And that coupled with what everyone is going to say, the production. It sounds like cliche to say about this album, but it's true.
I have it at number 6. I mean, the production is pure butt sauce.
It is.
I do like grind. I am a grind fan. Some of the best song titles in the world, I think, are on this album.
Or on any Carcass album.
Carbonized eye sockets, vomited anal tract.
Genital grinder.
Yep.
Hot.
Yep. And I mean, while I am a grind fan, I've listened to this record a lot, and it's just butt sauce. The production it
can kill a lot.
It's like petrified shit in a grinder.
That was probably a working song title.
It probably was. It probably was. If that was a song title, great job, because I thought the same.
I also had this at number 6. I have it, again, a little bit higher than last place because this was kind of the birth of goregrind. Like, grindcore at this point was really more like political and just like pissed off. These guys literally just went through medical journals and found the most foul, disgusting stuff to talk about, and this album is steeped in pus and rot and filth. And yeah, the production's terrible, but the songs are kind of fun. Feet Aside, I like the vocal trade-offs. They're just, just hearing Bill Steer's low growls and Jeff Walker's snarls is kind of cool. Burnt to a Crisp, Pungent Excruciation, Oxidized Razor Masticator. Who the fuck thinks this shit like this?
Nobody does it better.
Yeah.
Nobody does it better.
It's absolutely gross. The artwork is fucking foul. I actually have the poster for this hanging in my kitchen because that's where it fucking belongs.
Right across from the fridge.
Yep.
I remember the first time my mom came over here and saw that poster in the kitchen.
A bunch of
and
wieners
she didn't say anything the whole time she was here. She just kept looking at the walls going,
If she had asked, I would have told her it was a scratch and sniff. And that's the smell. But yeah, number 6, mostly for the innovation, just for being kind of first for a genre. It's, they got a lot fucking better later on, but this is a fun, ridiculously gross album and stomach-churning song titles, but we're going to get into more of those.
So not long after they get back in the studio to do their follow-up, which would be released on December 4th, 1989, once again on Earache Records, Symphonies of Sickness. And this would take the grindcore sound, but add some death metal to it. And man, a little death metal goes a long way. While this is still number 6 on my list, to me, this album is much more listenable than the previous. I would say the only song that I really love on here, and probably everyone's going to say this, is Exhumed to Consume.
The hooks in there.
I mean, it's actually, like, in their whole catalog, it is one of their best songs. Yeah, for sure.
Lifestyle.
Aside from that, it's not for me, which is why I kind of ranked it as low. However, for people that are into death grind and grindcore, this is like a monumental landmark type album. It just, for me, who's not into that, it's not my thing.
I have this at number 3. This is the sickness to be down with. This is just a foul, nasty album. And honestly, in terms of their entire discography, I think this is like the biggest leap in musicianship and songwriting. Like, they got so much better from the debut. There's a lot more melody. There's really cool, like, wild riff arrangements. The song titles are still fucking foul. Swarming vulgar mass of infected virulency. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a thrashy bastard of a song with a foul fucking title. Of course, Exhume to Exhume is absolutely amazing. And pathological necroticism, crepitating bowel erosion.
Yes.
These are all fun. I like the use of the pitch-shifted vocals, too. Like, it's kind of a thing I don't like on, like, other goregrind, but here where it was kind of used first and was used effectively, like, taking Bill Steer's already low gurgles down even further just to make him sound like he's just puking up entrails, which sounds entirely possible for this band. This album is absolutely awesome. I would say maybe the first Death Grind album, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe.
But, hell of a fucking template to build off of.
I have this at number 5. I mean, the recording still sounds like it was recorded in Snuffleupagus' ass.
It's better, though.
But it's better. It's better.
They got Colin Richardson on this one, surprisingly.
I believe, if I am not mistaken, Colin Richardson produced every album from here on out.
Yeah.
I think so. Did he do the most recent ones, too?
That I don't remember, but he's done every other one besides.
Pretty sure he's done
Okay,
them all.
then if he's done Torn Arteries, then Colin Richardson has done every single Carcass album production-wise.
Yeah, I'm almost sure he did them all, but let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
Because we're probably wrong. I'm usually wrong.
Right. We're usually all a little wrong at times. No, I mean, the song structures start to get better. They're definitely making improvements. Less songs, longer album, so they're stepping away a bit more from the grind aspect and heading a little bit more towards death metal. We get some leads in there finally, which don't appear in Reek, so you can tell this band is making headway. The song Excoriating Abdominal Emanation has some really sick grooves in it. In fact, groove becomes something in this album as well. Yeah, great jams. Great jams. Bad recording, great jams.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with a mix of what John and Shred said, that's why I have it at 6. It's a musicianship jump is crazy in this one. And you get into more songwriting and structure, and it's not just balls to the wall, which is more or less probably because they only had 4 days to do that albums. And they're kids, and they're just, go. And so this is still, it's a transition. That's why I have it at 6. It's setting the foundation of what is to come, and some of my favorite albums all time.
And boy, do they come. So for the end of the touring of Symphonies of Sickness, at the time, not well-known guitar player, but now he's very well-known. A little guy named Michael Amat from Sweden decides to come in and lend his help to the tour, and guess what? They said, damn you fly, why don't you stick around for a while? So he does. And now we get the first album with Bill Steer and Michael Ammett, which is pretty fucking cool. We won't have many of them on this discography, but the ones we do have are effing special.
Yes.
Such as this one. So a little over a year after Symphonies of Sickness, October 30th, 1991, Necroticism, Descanting the Insalubrious is released. Produced by Colin Richardson, of course. Like I said, this is not only the first time that Michael Ammett is in the band, this is also the first time so far that the band will record as a 4-piece. Now, this album is my number 2. This is a fantastic album, and I think this really showcases the beginning of what would be the classic Carcass sound, and that would be the more intricate riffs, the dual melody lines. Bill Steer has a very signature tone, and basically like laying some of the groundwork for melodic death metal, honestly. Songs like, I know Nick's going to go crazy over there, because Incarnate Solve and Abuse, man.
God!
Corporal Jigsaw Quandary, Carnius Cacophony.
Oh, yeah.
These are all examples of still taking that Symphonies of Sickness death metal, totally ditching grind, but adding some really strong melodic parts in here, and it gives the heaviness such power, and I just cannot say enough about this album. Never does this album lose heaviness, but the introduction of some of these more melodic parts make it so much stronger. Yeah, number 2, Necroticism is a fucking gem of a metal album, hands down.
Fuck yes.
Number 3. What Shred said, this is a gem of an album. I mean, this is where they really start to hone in on groove. There's nasty groove all over this album, In Propagation, Pedigree Butchery. But then melody really starts to take a play, whereas it's hinted at the record prior to it. Now we're bringing melody, now we're bringing harmony, now we're bringing nasty leads.
And it's signature. It's it's hard to explain, but it's if you listen to it, you can tell it's them. They have this signature melodic sound to them that they were bringing that was really fresh at the time.
Yeah. I hear why this guy likes Bill Steer.
He's a motherfucking
knowing that this guy plays guitar himself, you hear a lot of Bill Steer. I think you're playing too.
Oh, jeez.
Yep.
Oh, jeez.
Right?
You're going to make me blush and come at the same time.
Number 2, I absolutely love this album. Actually, I mean, between this and the next album, it could be 1A and 1B. Very different animals. I like that this one just kind of expanded on all the stuff that they were doing on Symphonies of Sickness, where a little bit more melody. The guitar harmonies are so goddamn good on here.
Yeah, they are.
But this is a brutal album. Like, when it is heavy, it is just disgustingly heavy. And the bits of atmosphere in between the tracks with all the surgical grossness and whatnot.
The opening of the album.
Oh, dude. All sorts of just foulness. Symphonies of Sickness has one of the most twisted sounding tremolo openings. It's just an odd fucking riff. But man, there are hooks all over. And Lavaging Expectorate of Lysergicide Composition. I love that song, and I also wanted to fucking say it just because
I was going to say, kudos to you.
And he did it. He did it on the first
one
try.
take. Yeah.
That's skill, ladies and gentlemen. That is skill.
The breakdown at the end of Incarnated Soul of Abuse might be one of my favorite Carcass moments.
Yes. Do that verse riff too. That verse riff is nasty too.
Dude, I mean, right from the rip. But yeah, everything was just fucking firing on all cylinders here. They just kind of got it all together, and it's more accessible, but at the same time, like, it doesn't sound like they pussified anything. This is just a monster of a fucking album.
I had this at number 4, which is in the middle, but I love this album, and that just goes to show, like, when we do these rankings, how good this band is.
And there's only 7 albums.
And there's only 7 albums, so yeah.
This album, he left me nothing.
We all left.
I was waiting. I was
like,
like, the breakdown, the groove in the back of it. No one, and then you said, "I was like,
that's one of the best moments."
I know.
That's what happens when you go last
great
ranking.
Like, yeah, you're right.
What do I say? Blah, 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 pig, Carcass.
Schmeagle schmee.
You're gonna have to suck this album's rotted fucking pus-filled dick some other way.
By listening to it over and over. But Corporal Jigsaw was, when I started learning drums, that was one of the songs that made me want to learn drums. And listen to Owen drum. I love the dude's drumming. It's fantastic. So, but it's still number 4.
Yeah.
There's better stuff for me.
Ken Owen's like a wily punk drummer that learned how to play metal. Like, he just plays with outright aggression.
Now, having all that momentum from creating a pretty kick-ass album, the world had their attention, and they were ready to create their next album, their 4th album. That would be released October 18th, 1993, Heartwork. And Heartwork is what many would consider to be their strongest, most well-known album. Recorded at Parr Street Studios in Liverpool, London. It is awesome. The artwork is insanely cool, created by H.R. Geiger. The piece is actually entitled, I had no idea until I looked this stuff up, Life Support 1993. And what was the music video? Where there was like someone like welded on it.
No, that was Heartwork.
Yeah. The track Heartwork itself had the music video where the piece was actually in it, and I thought that was pretty sweet. This would be Michael Ammett's last recording with Carcass. Unfortunately, he would leave pretty much after this album was done. Very sad, very sad. But every song on this album is an absolute banger. This is my number 1. This is... The death metal is definitely still there, but there's a lot of melodic shit going on here, which is definitely pushing the melodic death metal territory. I believe Jeff Walker and Bill Steer would consider it more progressive in interviews, but definitely I hear a lot of melodic death metal tropes that people use constantly in this album, and for damn good reason. Every song is a well-crafted banger. Everything from the leads to the riffs to the lead melodies, growling, production, everything on here is just 10 out of 10 firing on all cylinders. What can I say?
I mean, I think we can all agree that that's the case. It's my number one. I think it's number one.
It's number one.
It's number one around the table.
the board.
This record whoops ass.
Whoops a horse's ass with a
through
belt.
and through. I mean, I could name every track, and I could listen to every track on this album every day for the rest of my life and not be disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the thrashiness of Carnal Forge, the first hook riff from Buried Dreams, No Love Lost, I think has one of my favorite Carcass riffs ever in the chorus. I mean, what are you gonna do? It's Heartwork, dude. It's one of the best fucking beginnings of mellow death. You know, God.
Yeah, and this album for me was like, I liked metal at this point, but this was the album I listened to that was like loved metal. Like, man, this can be really fucking good music, man.
This is one of the first albums I ever heard by Carcass.
There's albums in your life that when you listen to them, like, are special, like really special. Like, and if you listen to a lot of music, you know, not every album can be as special, but there's like life-changing, like milestone type albums. This for me was a milestone album when I heard this. I couldn't believe people were making music like this, and I absolutely fucking loved it.
This was my first exposure to Carcass. I bought it on the album cover alone and was like, this is just interesting looking. And fuck, dude. Woo. This is one of the riffiest albums out there. Like, the guitar tone is otherworldly. It's one of my favorite guitar tones on any fucking album. And this brilliant mix of just heavy yet melodic stuff. Like, I mean, it's heavier than hell, like on par with, like, you know, a lot of their earlier stuff in terms of ferocity, like, you know, This Mortal Coil, fucking Arbrate, Mocked Flesh, which translates loosely to work brings flesh, which is an expression on work brings freedom or something like that in German. But yeah, heavier than hell riffs, but big melodic hooks. Every solo on here is fucking amazing.
Buttery smooth.
Melts in your mouth, baby.
The stuff every guitarist like pines over and noodles and studies and like, oh my god, what is he using? What is he doing? I mean, even if you play guitar, you can play riffs off this song. It ain't gonna sound.
It's got to have that injection of Bill Steerism.
Yeah,
it's got to have the Steerism.
It's got to have that.
He's a special man, that Bill.
And this one's interesting too because it kind of brings up the point of like when you get into Carcass, because Carcass is different from album to album as you keep finding out, and you know, you can become a fan of one style they do and not a fan of another style. So this album is a bit divisive with some people. Like, a lot of people, it's between like Symphonies of Sickness, Necroticism, and this one in terms of their favorites. But man, I can't let go of this one. Like, Necroticism is the closest thing to it, and it's still not quite Heartwork for me.
And using a point that Necrotic brought up, you know, this band does do a lot of different sounding albums, and 3 years later, after Heartwork is done, they take a little bit of time off. Michael Ammett's no longer in the band. They are actually lining up to do a Columbia Records debut. They were going to release this album through Columbia Records through the United States. It was supposed to be their big major distribution deal. However, due to some unforeseen events, some technical mumbo jumbo, negotiating, blah blah blah, that fell through. So back to Earache we go. But we get an album that is very divisive among the fans, I would say. June 10th, 1996, Carcass releases Swan Song. Now, the reason Swan Song, I believe, is so divisive, it's basically a black and roll album.
I wouldn't even say that.
Death and roll.
Melodic
death and roll.
Kind of.
It's a something.
It's a record.
It is not for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah.
This is my number 4 album. I've always defended this album. Tracks like Cross My Heart are very catchy. I love it. Black Star, Cross My Heart, Room 101. It really hangs on more of the simplistic or more of the melodic stuff and more basic type riffs. Once again, the kind of death and roll vibe. But I thought they did it really well, and I love the catchiness of this album. So for me, this album is badass, and I love it. It's number 4. You guys are going to disagree. But I want you to make your own opinion because that's what you should do, despite what this guy's ready to say.
Well, I'm with you a little bit.
Well,
calm down.
We'll
put this pressure cooker at bay for a little bit because I dig this album too.
Thanks, dude.
But it is 5 because they have better stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, it's hooky, but I get what he's going to say. It kind of sounds like, well...
No,
Yeah.
no,
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
It's welling up. We're good.
Yep, exactly. I'm gonna get there.
Okay, I'll start
Have
over.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like Tomorrow Belongs to Nobody. I love that riff in that song. Black Star, like you mentioned.
Black Star.
There's a lot of good stuff in here for me, but I find that I listen to this album when I'm cleaning. It's really good because it has a very just constant throughout the whole thing, and it's a good momentum for cleaning. So maybe that's why I like this song. It's good to clean to. Clean to this album. Maybe it'll go up in your ranking a little bit. Maybe it'll piss him off too.
It's the same drum beat on almost every song. Oh my god.
There it is. There it is. Yep.
Okay,
It
it's coming up. This is my last place one.
Yeah, this is also my last place one. I think Nick and I are just
Yeah.
gonna riff here, but
All right. 1996 was not a great time to
it wasn't.
be metal. I mean, unless you were Pantera,
Well,
a lot of metal bands were struggling. Well, Metallica was fucking selling out. Yeah, this is kind of their Black Album, but
It's
it's really dull. And all right, I like Death and Roll. I think Death and Roll is fun. You know, Entombed, Wolverine Blues, and Uprising. But this album has none of that energy. This album does not have really any energy. Like, you can just kind of hear the band kind of just like kind of fading out, like they were kind of losing interest. Even Bill Steer said at this point he was kind of losing interest in metal in general, and you can hear it. Like, you know, there's some good riffs, there's some good melodies. I think Don't Believe a Word is a really good song. It's just on a really boring
it's a decent
album.
jam. Yeah.
I come back to this album like all the time because I want to find more I like about it, but every time I come back to it, it's like, man, I want to turn it off. It's just not a very good album. Like, this is not the way to follow Heartwork, which is like God tier.
Right. This album is just kind of boring, to be honest. And again, to play off that, there's that drum beat is just every song.
We know Ken could do more.
Right.
We heard it.
I know you could do more. Like, even the lead tone is a bit dry. Like, I think overall, coming off of a record like Heartwork, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I mean, there's a couple decent riffs, like in Room 101. Yeah, again, Don't Believe a Word. There's a couple of decent things, but really, I was just like, man, I'm bored. I'm bored.
Kind of like an identity crisis. Like, they kind of lost like the script a little bit. Like Heartwork, Necroticism, Symphonies, like almost everything up to this point really sounded like Carcass. This sounds like Jeff Walker fronting a different band that just likes to play Bill Steer sort of harmonies. So the same year that Swan Song dropped, they broke up. They kind of all kind of went their own ways, and well, I mean, some other things happened along the way too that, well, weren't that great. Unfortunately, Ken Owen suffered what I believe was either an embolism or an aneurysm, and it pretty much knocked him out of probably playing drums ever again. Like, I know he's recovered, and that's awesome because he's such an integral part of Carcass's sound. Those early albums were definitely made ferocious courtesy of his drumming, but that definitely sidelined them ever reuniting, at least at that point. Jeff Walker went off to do a variety of different things. Namely, he did do one country album in 2006 that was interesting, like country metal. It was called Welcome to Carcass Country. I mean, I remember seeing the promo pics, him sporting the cowboy hat and the big belt buckle, and I was like,
Walker. Texas Ranger.
No. Liverpool Ranger.
Liverpool Ranger.
So, actually went on to do Black Star, which was kind of a continuation of the sound on Swan Song, I believe. I haven't actually jammed any of their stuff. There was that, and Bill Steer, he also did a retro rock, like 70s blues rock project called Firebird that was really good. I actually own a number of their albums. And actually spent some time in the band Angel Witch from 2011 to 2015. So they all were kind of busy, and then somewhere around 2007, they decided to get back together. I actually got to see them when they toured in 2007 when they had Michael Amott in the lineup, as well as Nathaniel Erlinson on drums for that tour, with a special tribute to Ken Owen. They actually played on a video projector, and it was amazing. One of my favorite concerts ever. And then slowly but surely, we started seeing little rumors popping up that Carcass is going to record an album again. And holy shit, was I excited.
Because really, you got to think Swan Song was back in, what, 96?
Yep.
So we get back together in 2007, but that album doesn't come out. They make us wait about 5-6 years till 2013. So on September 13th, 2013, they make their Nuclear Blast debut with Surgical Steel. This album for me is my number 3 Carcass album. Upon initially thinking about this ranking, I wouldn't have placed it there. But there's a reason we go back and listen to these albums, and it's for reasons like this. The first half of this album is very much old school Carcass to me. It is just aggression, death metal, just brutality to the extreme. Then about halfway through the album, it starts getting much more riff-driven, much more melodic, much more heartworky type vibe, Necroticism type vibe. And that back half, man, it is fucking lovely. Mount of Execution, the last track, the Satanic Granule Mills, whatever. I don't remember the exact name.
Granulating Dark Satanic Mills.
That one. That's a masterpiece, man. This album is not only from a production standpoint, maybe some of the best production that I've heard of them, probably all around, even compared to the next album, because the next album had a little bit of a different vibe production-wise. So as far as like that crystal clear, super crisp, tight, produced everything, this album was it, man. And not only did it bring the Carcass vibe, but it brought a lot of new stuff too. That's the great thing about this band. I think we can agree. They don't repeat a lot of stuff, even when they stay in similar veins. Like this album, I think, in the next album will really kind of touch base on all their older styles a little bit. And they never find themselves repeating the same thing twice, which is really awesome, and probably a nice product of only having 7 albums. But this album was fantastic. It's a kick-ass comeback album, and I have plenty more nice things to say, but I want to let these guys say some nice things about it too.
I have this at number 4. This is one of my favorite comeback albums of all time. I was so fucking excited to hear this, and right from the rip with Thrasher's Avatar, I was like, oh my god, this is fucking Carcass again. This is a thrashy bastard of a fucking album. It is flying, and a lot of that is due to new drummer Dan Wilding, who was in the band Trigger the Bloodshed up until this point. And, man, I love Ken Owen, but Dan Wilding is definitely a little bit more sophisticated in terms of, like, his clever fills and such. But he...
technicality and such.
He definitely plays, like, homage to, like, Ken Owen's style a lot on here, too. Loads of melody. Unfit for Human Consumption is one of my favorite Carcass songs of all time now. Granulating Dark Satanic Mills. Cadaver Pouch Conveyor System. My god, the frantic fucking, like, just, oh, god, the guitar work in here is fucking good. Jesus. And this was all Bill Steer, too, I believe, on the album. They did get a touring guitarist to match up with him, and that's kind of a theme for these newer albums, but Bill Steer fucking shines on here. Like, every song has great fucking hooks. The only reason why it fell to 4 is just I like the earlier stuff more. And this is one of those, like, where there are all these albums that I love so damn much, but picking it apart, I mean, there's ones I love a little bit more, but this is top-notch fucking Carcass.
I have this at number 3. Top-notch fucking Carcass. Exactly what he said. This is what it is. This is accumulation of all the stuff I like about Carcass. And like you said, I like that it's an album. The whole first half of it is frantic, and then they get the melodic stuff. They remind you of like Heartwork and stuff like that. So they touch these little notes on their whole discography, which is short. And like you were saying, it's probably goes well to the fact that there isn't anything repeated. They can really like... And it is, I guess, change, but not, because it still sounds like Carcass. Everything sounds like,
but they're not repeating themselves.
And their unique style is always there. But that's what makes this a great band. And what makes a great band in general is having that, I can hear it and I know who it is. I know who the player is, I know who the band is, and they have this.
Style-wise, this has a lot of familiarity, too. Like, it sits, like, style-wise, like, right in between Necroticism and Heartwork.
It's a very comfortable spot for me, which is why it's at 3.
Number 2 for me, Welcome Back, Carcass. Welcome back.
So good to see you, my friend.
Yep, so good. This record is just high energy, thrashy as all get out. And I like the fact, again, it's an album. Goes from thrashy in the front half to the back half, where it gets a little bit darker and a little bit more melodic. The lead work, again, is top tier, top notch. 316L surgical steel. The lead work in there is nasty. Non-compliance to ASTM F89912 standard.
I wonder if, like, he's at the store and they're like,
Right.
"Can I have your number for this?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." 8, 7, 6.
Right?
I mean, he has to do that.
I hope at least once or twice.
I know.
He's just going through the order for him. Like, I'm just, and you know what? I don't want to say the thing. I'm just going to put the order number on there.
Yep.
They'll get it. They'll get it.
They'll get it.
But yeah, that song full of whoop-ass riffs and leads. It's just nice to hear the band come back and fire on all cylinders, especially after waiting
Forever.
forever.
Really, 17 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
A captive bolt pistol, too.
Captive bolt pistol, yes.
That crawling harmony.
Yep.
What the fuck? It's so goddamn good.
It's catchy as hell. It's like that earworm. It's like,
Dude, Carcass is loaded with earworms.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Earworms everywhere. Earworm farm.
Yeah.
Earworm farm.
Yes.
Earworm farm.
But yeah, good record, good jams. What do you want? It's Carcass.
More Carcass.
More Carcass.
Which we get
Additional Carcass.
a few years later, though.
So after Surgical Steel, they continue to stay as a band, but they stay pretty dormant. In the early 2020, however, they release the first song of an EP under the Scalpel Blade, and we actually reviewed the whole thing when it came out, but one by one they were teasing us with these epic songs and just getting everybody's mouth salivating for what would end up being, as of right now, the last album in Carcass's discography. So, released on September 17th, 21, a year later than they had originally anticipated, thanks to COVID. Fuck you, COVID. And named after a demo tape from Ken Owen. Also, the first time the same lineup has recorded 2 albums in a row since Heartwork. So, a little bit of history there for you. However, we get the album Torn Arteries. And Torn Arteries has not only a very weird fruit and vegetable cover of a heart, which is pretty damn cool.
It is cool.
To me, this album is another blend of everything Carcass does. However, on this album, I felt like the recording style was a little bit more old school.
Yes.
And that made it interesting because the guitars were a little bit warmer and not so much in the forefront, and things were done just a little bit different from a production standpoint, and it almost sounds like Surgical Steel had more of that 90s kind of metal vibe, whereas Torn Arteries feels a little more mature. While it's still Carcass, it still feels a little bit more mature than some of their previous stuff, songwriting wise. I love it. It's my number 5, but only because the top 5 albums of Carcass,
Right.
I mean, are just great.
Great.
So once again, only 7. The last 2 I'm not crazy about. So the top 5 I could put in a million different orders, with the exception of the top 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is an excellent album. This actually number 4 best metal album of 2021, Rolling Stone. It was the number 4 best metal album. It was the number 1 Metal Hammer death metal album of 2021, and it was Decibel's number 1 top album of 2021. So I remember rating it a 4.5. I absolutely love this album.
This was year in for all of us, right? Yeah.
I think it was my number 4 year end.
Yeah.
Top 15?
Anytime you throw Carcass into the mix, it's such a special thing because you don't get a lot of it, so you try to savor what you do get.
Yeah, it's a good way to put that.
Yeah, and who knows when we may never get another Carcass album, or we might get one in the next 2 years. Who knows? But for now, we're going to savor the flavor. And yeah, this is a great album, and it continues to do what Carcass does best, which is create fucking hooks, riffs, and fucking epic-ass fucking death metal.
Yep.
And I agree with everything there, which is my number 2. I love this album, and it's probably number 2 just because I've listened to it so much the past year that it's just right there in my head. And, Heartwork is always going to be my number 1 with Carcass. And I love that they're continuing to give you what you want out of a Carcass album while also progressing in their songwriting and stuff like that. And what you were saying about the production, I think that was going with the whole wave of production style like that's going more old school sound. But it sounds... Yeah. Which I dig. It reminds me of throwing in a cassette and just fucking jamming with the windows down. So I dig it. And I dig this album.
I can't wait till we can roll the windows down.
I know.
That was able to roll the windows down a couple days ago. It was warming up.
Yeah.
Then it, shifted to like 40 degrees, but, Ohio. That's how weather rolls here.
I had this at my number 4 solely because There's only 7 albums, and really, again, like he said, top 5, and you could rearrange them any way you want except for the top 2. Again, yet another good return. I mean, at this point in the game, you know, you're firing on all cylinders. You know, especially with COVID. Fuck COVID. Everybody's got some downtime to sit in their houses and write a bunch of killer songs, which a lot of bands did, including Carcass. The riff work on here, all over, just great. All these songs are great. Under the Scalpel Blade, Flesh Ripping Sonic Torment Limited. That song whoops ass.
Eleanor Rigor Mortis.
That
groove, like that speaks to me. That groove.
And that one riff, the bam 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 bam.
Oh, that's
dude. That's one of the catchiest things I think I've ever heard. That riff stays stuck in your head. Yeah, hell of an album.
This is my number 5. I think this kind of feels like an all-encompassing Carcass listen because you get a lot of stuff from different eras. Of course, Heartwork-ish stuff, Necroticism stuff. Kind of similar to Surgical Steel, except recorded differently. And there's even a little bit of the Death and Roll stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is.
Dude, Dance of X-Tab.
Love it.
Yep.
That fucking opening groove. Carcass does an arena rock fucking opener, and fuck, that riff is so goddamn good.
It just drags along. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, they got the Death and Roll vibe a little bit better than, say, Swan Song.
Horseshit.
But this is a badass album. I like the fact that Flesh Ripping Sonic Torment Limited is a reference to one of their old demos, too. And that song is a 9.5-minute riff fest. And that is pretty much this entire album. Bill Steer is just riffing his fucking dick off in here. This is just such a well-rounded album, and again, with the pacing of it, how the songs are all very different, it's just a really interesting listen. Again, just because of 5, you know, it doesn't mean that this is, like, lower tier fucking Carcass. Those top 5 are so goddamn good, they'd be high on any fucking list. But, man, dude, this was tough to rank, but yeah, this one landed at 5. It's still fucking amazing. And I still go back and jam it a lot. Kelly's Meat Emporium and Torn Arteries, the title track, are just thrashy fucking bangers. This is an awesome album, and I can't wait to hear what's next.
So sadly, that is all the music that Carcass has released, so we can't really review anymore. However, if you have never heard of Carcass, I hope that we have opened your eyes to a new band and potentially one of your new favorite bands. And if you've heard of Carcass before and know who they are, we hope we did a well enough job explaining them and giving our damn good opinions. The core of them will always be Ken Owen, Bill Steer, and Jeff Walker, minus whoever walked in and out of the band. Ken Owen, you're a dog. It's not your fault. And now the core is basically Bill Steer and Jeff Walker. Those two will be the gruesome twosome of London until they go into the ground. And we are here for that. Whether they want to do Firebird stuff or anything, whatever these guys put out, I'm at least going to give it a listen to it.
Yeah.
And I know we're all hoping for more Carcass.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you like what you saw here, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you are not subscribed to our channel, we would love to welcome you to our community. Plus, it'll notify you of when we release new videos, which is pretty much all the damn time.
We're also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there'll be a link down below. And we also have t-shirts.
Yeah, go to thrallsofmetal.com, click up there on the little store thing, check out, and I'll get a notification, get out of bed, and go down and pack that shit up.
That's right. He packs it fresh just for you.
Fresh.
Dirty.
So, we're going to go back to packing each other. And on that note, we'll catch you later.